Don't stop.
Hi, thanks for joining me in the Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay podcast. I'm your host, Zach Randles-Friedman. I have tried to start this episode at least 97 times today, and I think I'm going to get through it this time. So welcome to the show. This is my weekly episode that I have started. This is episode 5 of what I call the Gay Bit. So throughout the week, I do a show. You get about 3 to 4 episodes a week. And my show is called Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay. And sometimes the episode is gay and sometimes it's not at all. So I'm going to make up for those that are not gay and talk about a gay subject. So welcome to the Gay Bit. My episode today, I'm going to focus on kind of personalities of gay people, mostly gay men. And so I'm really am observant when it comes to people, and I kind of I don't want to say study them, but I definitely pay attention to people. So this may make some people feel a little bit uncomfortable when we're talking about different types of gay people, but that's what this show is for. It's to make you think. Whenever I was 20 years old, I went to my first gay bar, and I remember walking into this bar and I just seen all these different types of gay people. So I grew up in Miami, and super macho Cuban men that were in there that you would never have thought were gay in a million years, and they didn't want you to think they were gay. They were like the butch top guys. And then you had this completely opposite guys that were super gay, walking with their, I'm being so stereotypical here, but this is really what they were doing, walking around with their wrist bent and being like, oh, girl, oh, honey, oh, child, all this stuff. So being super gay, putting on an act, because I always think, what are these people like when they're home alone, or when they're home with their family, or they're in front of, I don't know, their mother? Are they, this is who they are? And I don't think it is. And I'll tell you what kind of brought me to wanting to make this episode, because as everyone knows that listens to the show, I'm kind of a little bit addicted to watching TikTok, and there's several nights a week where I go on, which I say is going to be 15 minutes, and then 2.5 hours I'm still there scrolling through TikTok. But it's work, because I find people that I want to interview on TikTok that come on, and I just get show ideas sometimes. And I actually got this show idea from TikTok, because there's a guy on TikTok. He lives in, I think somewhere in Kentucky. He's gay. He's an interior designer. And every day he comes out and he goes, this is my outfit for the day. He wears women's clothes, men's clothes, all of the above, some designer, some Amazon clothes, some Zara, kind of all over the place. And some of his outfits are super femme and not for me. And other ones I'm like, oh, that's cute, but I probably wouldn't wear that myself. But he's got his handbags, his brooches, he's got the hats going on. He calls his listeners his possums. And I want to interview him, because I want to know, how did he, who is he really? Because him and his friend are driving around in a convertible and, talking, or he's at his house. And I would love to know, what behind the scenes is for this guy. Who is he really outside of this persona he is putting on TikTok? Because I think about him what happens whenever he is not on camera or his friends aren't around? He's at home alone. Is he watching Netflix? Who is he? I would love to know that, because there's so much of this. There's so many people. I just want to know who they are really, because I feel is it a performance? And I think that so much of our personality it's learned, or we adapt part of our personality from things, from social media, from pop culture. And before you listen to this and you get defensive saying I'm stereotyping gays, that is not me saying that at all. I'm not saying being gay is fake. I think everybody, and no matter if you're gay, straight, bi, transgender, asexual, bisexual, wherever category you fall in, I think that you got to figure out what your identity is. I think gay people have to figure out who their identity is differently, because depending on where you live and what the environment you grew up in or the culture that you're in, there's a survival mechanism that you have to activate in order to feel like you belong. And most gay people have gone through that, at least gay people that are in my generation. And there's a point where I think you have to say, wait, is this who I am? Is this who I want to be? And I have done that in my life, not recently, because, but when you're in your 20s and you're trying to figure out who you are, and I think today the LGBTQ plus community is trying to figure out who they are because they have so many more things that are really helping shape who they are because they have a TikTok persona, possibly. They have an Instagram persona. They're, showing this life on social media with pictures and videos. And is that really who they are? Or are they just putting this out there to show who they are? Because I have friends that post all this stuff on social media and I know them very well. And I know that's not what their real life is about, but they're putting on this persona. And I feel like I did study psychology in my undergrad, but I feel like I'm being a psychologist in some way. But I think people are really putting out these personalities and putting out this whole persona, who they wish they were or who they want people to think they are. And we'll be right back. Okay, and now back to the show. There's so many different types of gay people out there, different groups. So if you think about the bears and the otters, you think about the twinks, you think about, people identify now as in the pulp culture, the pups, the pups that wear the mask. You have the whole drag queens. And I remember growing up, whenever I was in South Beach in college, living there was this group of drag queens that performed all over South Beach, and I loved them so much. I had one of them, Shelly Novak, on my show early on when I started my podcast. And I loved that whole group of drag queens in South Beach. All of them. They were all so fucking amazing. And they all were together all the time and they had their own act going and stuff. And they were just, I don't know, I always looked at them like they were super cool and just like they were the it crowd to me in so many ways. Cause they just seemed so comfortable being themselves and didn't give a fuck about who they were and they were hyper aware that they were the center of attention as soon as they walked into a room, which I kind of loved. And I got to know some of them outside of them dressing in drag, and they were completely different. But they were sweet and caring, but when they put on that drag, they would tear you apart if they needed to. And I love that. And I think that today people are doing this more and more where they're putting on an act for social media. I go out now to a bar and I see these younger generations where they're really it's with the selfies and the videos and stuff. And they're doing Snapchats and all this other stuff and quick TikToks that they're putting up there, uploading right in the bar and stuff. And it's just it's so much again, I've said this before, I just couldn't imagine growing up with social media and having to always constantly be on like that. And you have to be kind of conscious of, even off of social media and stuff, as a gay man, you have to kind of think about, how am I talking? Am I being too gay? You got to think about the environment you're in also. Because I think of it this way. Think about if you were living in one of the southern states. So let's take Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, even Florida, parts of Florida, northern Florida. Think about that. If you are gay and you're super feminine, you have to put on an act somehow. You can't go to the grocery store in a small town outside of Little Rock, Arkansas, and be your true authentic self. If you're really Queenie gay guy, you don't want to get beat up or harassed or bullied when you're going to CVS or to a grocery store. So you have to really be something that you're probably not half the time. And maybe you don't even have gay friends living in a small town like that, which is really sad. But all gay guys have their group of friends where they talk a certain way. You have your little sayings. I feel like me and my gay friends almost have our own secret language sometimes. But everybody kind of questions, what kind of gay am I? Whenever I was growing up, I was definitely the twink, a club kid. Uh, that's who I was until my mid 20s. And then I don't know what kind of gay did I become then. Then I moved to New York City. I was still not a club kid so much anymore, but I don't know. I was just like a gay guy. You know, you have your fashion gays that are all into all their designer wear. You have your gym gays. You have the party gays. You have the intellectual gays that are in school still at the age of 38, still trying to figure out like what they want to do. And they just love books and love reading and stuff. And, you have the ultra rich gays that have more money than they know what to do. Oh, the circuit queen gays, those were big gays. That was a big gay group whenever I was growing up. And and I think the circuit queens that were the circuit queens back whenever I was growing up are still circuit queens, still going to the circuit parties across the world. How they're alive still after doing all those drugs is beyond me, but circuit queens are still out there. I never got into the circuit party, never was into a circuit queens at all, just not my cup of tea. And I do think that as you mature and you get older and you grow up, there's things that you change and you kind of take out, and depending on where you are and who you're with and the group of friends you're with, your personality is different. And maybe you act up a little bit more, you act a little more gay. And I mean, definitely when I'm with my friends, I'm still the same Zach. I'm still the same person, but I, go out and have a few drinks. I'm on a little bit more. I'm a little more funnier and stuff. And I'm not looking for validation necessarily anymore. I don't care about that. Like my friends are my friends and they're going to love me no matter what. And if they don't love me, then they're not my friend anymore. It's just funny just how there's so many different gays and how gays almost have to have a brand at this point. Like there's almost like an aesthetic that they have to have in some way. And I also think that there's gays that are in relationships that are completely different now. And they are more homebodies. I mean, me and my husband are so different. He does not care about going out to bars at all anymore. He doesn't care about being social anymore. He wants to go to bed at 9 o'clock every night. I am now going out once a week with friends because I need socialization. He wants to order DoorDash in or cook at home. And we're just, we love each other and we're on the same page still, but I still at the age and at the time in my life where I need to go out and be social, and maybe that's just our personalities are just a little different. But he just doesn't give a fuck about being social. He wants to go on vacations with friends and do adventures and go hiking and do that type of stuff with friends, but he doesn't care about having drinks anymore. We're out. He thinks it's all stupid, and he doesn't get pop culture either, which is another thing I'm kind of grateful for in a way. But he used to watch the Real Housewives shows with me. He doesn't care about any of that anymore. He wants to watch his Law and Order. And he always says, I want to watch a story show. And I'm like, what's a story show? So a story show is Game of Thrones, the new series that was out that we watched. It's like he wants a show with a story. He doesn't want reality TV. So I love reality TV, and that's another gay trait that I have. So, but I think going back to kind of gay personalities, I think that also gay people adapt to their environment. There is kind of a behavioral mechanism that they have to kind of turn on just to kind of feel safe in some ways. I also think over time, a gay guy has to build themselves on who they're going to be and feel comfortable with themselves and not be an exaggerated part of yourself or who you are or who your personality is. And I'll just say this. There are straight people that have the same exact thing. So if you think about, if you went to a sports bar, let's say if you're from Boston, you'll get this reference. Let's say you're in Southie in Boston, you're in a straight sports bar. So think about any straight sports bar in any city. You go in there and you have different crowds of people. So same thing in a gay bar, except it's a different crowd. But in a straight bar, you could have the jocks, you could have the guys wearing the backward baseball hats, the frat boys, and then you also have these girls that are a complete disaster and mess, that who drunk too much, who's throwing up outside, their friends are holding their hair back, and this is their every weekend thing that they're doing. And it's just part of who they are. And so I guess every culture, so it's not just gay, but I guess every culture has their different personality types. I just think gay people have to just adapt to it sometimes. And there's more of accepting who you are, accepting that you're gay, first of all, just kind of accepting who you are as a person and being your authentic self. And just asking that question to yourself, like, is this who I really am? And yeah, I think there's just gay people and LGBTQ plus people overall have to figure out more who they are. And I think sometimes gay people, including myself, have been there. You're putting on a performance in some ways. And I'm not saying that's negative. It can be empowering in some ways because you're maybe getting that attention that you need, or you're able to pull part of your personality out that you can't show all the time. Some people, it could be a lack of confidence, though, and that's bringing them joy in some ways. So I think and I just think as you get older, you change, you're changing, you're editing who you are, you're editing yourself. And at a certain age, I think who you are is who you are. And everybody, I think, goes through life and they have these phases where they're being fake and phony, or they've seen something in pop culture on social media or on TV, or there's something in the news and that influences what their personality is or how they're acting. And again, social media is just, it's really powerful. And I think there's so many trends that people show that are on social media, and people like show that in their real personality, or show that as part of their personality, not their real personality. And overall, being gay is not just one thing, in my opinion. I think it's so many things. I think it's so complicated. I think it's hard for some people. I think it starts off hard for some people, and then it gets easier for some people. You always wonder, I think, in the back of your head are these people accepting me? And then there's a certain point in your life, you're like, they don't accept me. It's okay. I don't care. But I think it takes a while to get there. I mean, there was a lot of my life where I can remember back, like, oh, am I being accepted? Not by my gay friends. I mean, maybe even by my gay friends. I think everybody goes through this. Everybody's like, is this new group of people going to accept me? Or am I part of this group? Do I fit in here? Do I recognize myself as I'm adjusting to this new group? I think my advice is just to be who you are. And if you need to be, sometimes you're a little more gay or a little more masculine, a little more butch, a little more whatever, just go with it. And I think eventually you'll find out who you are. I'm 53 years old, and I'm trying to figure out who I am on this podcast sometimes. And I have these tough conversations with people sometimes that I'm just like, am I being open about who I am on this podcast? And I'm trying to be, and I'm trying to have these conversations so people get to know who I am. And I've been told recently, I'm not opening up enough about who I am. And I'm trying to do that in these type of episodes. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I like doing these little episodes and coming up with a topic and just kind of talking. And it makes me think, and hopefully it makes you think. And if you have any feedback, I would love to hear comments. If you have any topics you'd want me to talk about that are around the gay or LGBTQ plus culture, I would love to talk about that. I mean, one of the things I want to talk about, maybe in an upcoming show, is in Provincetown, they have Women's Week and Baby Dyke Week and Women's Week. And me and my friend just talked about how he's going to Provincetown in a couple of weeks. And he's like, oh, I'm going during Women's Week or Lesbian Week. Him and his husband are going. And I'm like, oh, like, isn't that a horrible week to go? He goes, no, remember we went and we had so much fun. I'm like, oh, did we? And I don't remember. It was probably 15 years ago when we went. But he's like, yeah, remember we kept, and this is what made me remember going, because some of the lesbians there you look at them from like the side, or you like glance at them, and you're like, oh my God, that is the hottest guy. But it's a lesbian. And so there's a whole Instagram series of episodes that are out there where this woman did it, where it's called twink or lesbian. And they show different people, and you have to guess if it's a twink or a lesbian. And I think I got it wrong every single time. So I don't know. That might be a fun episode to do. But if you have any ideas about episodes of things I could talk about around the LGBTQ plus culture, please let me know, and I'd be happy to talk about it. And thanks for listening. I hope you're enjoying this. Give me some feedback. And if this resonates with anybody, share it with the 2 or 3 people. And again, leave a comment. Thanks so much for listening. I'll be back next week with more interviews and another gay bit. Bye.